I would encourage Indian immigrants who are here in our country and contributing to our economy, starting businesses, innovating in technology, to not fall into the Kamala Harris trap of identity politics and vote based on ethnicity. I would encourage them to ask the Kamala Harris campaign or do their research. What has Kamala Harris, as someone whose mother immigrated from India, what has she done? I think that President Trump would make it a priority to meet with Prime Minister Modi very quickly after he is elected and sworn in as president, to be able to build progress and move forward again on those areas of mutual interest, which is peace, freedom, and prosperity. President Biden and Kamala Harris instigated and crossed the red line that has long existed for Russia, that Ukraine cannot join NATO.
And joining us is Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. She has been a leading voice and advocate for President Trump. She's been campaigning across the nation to get President Trump elected. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us today.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, Congresswoman, you were a Democrat and you ran a presidential campaign in 2020. And now you have endorsed President Trump. What made you change your decision and becoming, endorsing President Trump? And what was the reason for you to do so?
Oh, first of all, I left the Democrat Party a few years ago because today's Democrat Party is controlled and led by this elitist cabal of warmongers who are undermining our freedom, fundamentally censoring free speech, undermining the rule of law and our democratic republic. There are many examples that I could give you. I wrote a book explaining in great detail why I left the Democrat Party. It's called For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. And in this election, the choice was very clear for me in why I endorsed President Trump over Vice President Kamala Harris. It is because of those fundamental rights and freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution and the words that our founders had for us in this country as Americans, our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under Vice President Harris over these past 4 years, along with Joe Biden, they have undermined our freedom and continue to do so. They have weaponized government entities to go after their political opponents. I've personally experienced political retaliation by this administration, putting me on a domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies just one day after I did an interview criticizing Kamala Harris's record as vice president and talking to the American people about the dangerous consequences of a Kamala Harris presidency. They have ruined our economy, increased the cost of living. We're seeing increased crime, open borders, over tens of millions of illegal immigrants coming across our borders, many of them actually violent convicted criminals coming from other countries. And on a foreign policy front, they have embroiled us in multiple wars in different parts of the world and have pushed us to the brink of World War III and closer to nuclear war than we ever have been before. On every account, the choice is clear that President Trump in this election is our best hope as a country to get back on that path where we can look to a future of peace and freedom and prosperity for all Americans.
You make, very interesting points there, ma'am, and I probably should go one by one on that. I mean, so how would a President Trump foreign policy differ from the one that we have in the White House from President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? There are wars, there's a war in the Middle East, there's ongoing war in Russia. I mean, how would his foreign policy differ? And when President Trump actually says he's going to end these wars, I mean, what should Americans, take? Like, should the Americans take it on, on the face value that he will be able to do it?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to point out that these wars didn't just appear magically out of nowhere in the Middle East. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris had a direct role to play in strengthening Iran and providing them and opening the floodgates of billions of dollars over these last 4 years, providing Iran with the resources to arm and equip and train and fund Islamist terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, as well as the Houthis, who are not only engaging in war against Israel, but are engaging in direct attacks against American service members and our own military in the region. This didn't happen without a cause. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden need to be held accountable for it. And they have showed a lack of leadership in working to bring about an end to these many different conflicts by engaging in direct diplomacy. The same can be said for Europe with everything that we're seeing play out today. President Biden and Kamala Harris instigated and crossed the red line that has long existed for Russia, that Ukraine cannot join NATO. People will say, oh, well, Ukraine can do whatever they want to do, but it is our responsibility. It is our leaders' responsibility to do what is in the best interest of peace and our own security for the American people. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have continued to say Ukraine will be a part of NATO. It should be no surprise that Putin responded by invading Ukraine. And President Biden and Kamala Harris have stood in the way of many other countries' attempts to broker a peace treaty, a negotiated end to this war that not only would have saved many, many Ukrainian lives, but would have made it so that we are not on the brink of nuclear war and World War III, which is where we sit today. Instead of pushing for peace, which is what President Trump has committed to do, even before he is sworn in as president, should he be elected, they have escalated this war. They have blocked attempts to bring about peace. And now they have said they approve these long-range missiles to be launched deep into Russia, which, again, we should be not surprised to know that Putin has responded by saying that should this actually happen, he will view that as a direct war between Russia and NATO and see it as an existential threat, and has authorized the use of his own nuclear weapons, which they have more nuclear weapons than any other country in the world, because they will view this as an existential threat. So we can't say how will President Trump work to bring about the end to these wars and bring about peace without first identifying that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have largely been the driver and cause of these wars. On what President Trump will do, he believes in leadership. He believes in direct diplomacy, and he's committed to bringing about peace, plain and simple. So he will do what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have refused to do, which is to sit down with Putin and sit down with Zelensky and conduct the kind of negotiations that President Trump has been doing his entire life, and the kinds of negotiations that he did when he was president back in 2016, willing to sit and meet with dictators and adversaries, along with partners and allies, to work towards our collective interest of peace and prosperity for everybody.
You also mentioned about border. The border has been a big issue. I think immigration is dominating, the election cycle this year. What would be President Trump's policy? I know he's talked about, securing the border. There are a lot of Indian immigrants, who obviously feel that, though nobody talks about their plight. And why should an Indian immigrant voter vote for President Trump versus President Harris? Because President Harris, one of the things that's going for her is that she's half Indian. So, I mean, anything that you would like to say to immigrants who should vote for President Trump?
I would encourage Indian immigrants who are here in our country and contributing to our economy, starting businesses, innovating in technology, to not fall into the Kamala Harris trap of identity politics and vote based on ethnicity. I would encourage them to ask the Kamala Harris campaign or do their research. What has Kamala Harris, as someone whose mother immigrated from India, what has she done for Indian Americans today? What has she done for Indian immigrants here in our country? I know the short answer to that. The short answer to that is nothing. The same issues and challenges with green cards, with children, Indian immigrants who are here on green cards and who have kids who turn 18 and now are facing a situation where they don't have any access to legal status and an extremely broken legal immigration system. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have not done a single thing to address these very real and longstanding issues that the Indian American and Indian immigrant communities face here. President Trump has talked very openly about different ideas, such as, immigrants who come here and go to school should immediately be issued a green card when they graduate from university here, because it's in our best interest as a country to be able to retain the kind of talent and innovation and opportunity that many immigrants come here to seek, rather than providing people with skills and capabilities and then sending them back to their home country. President Trump has talked about recognizing the growth and the benefit that the United States and our economy gains from many immigrants from different parts of the world, but especially and including Indian immigrants. So I have no doubt that President Trump sees the opportunity here and will do all that he can in order to address these longstanding issues and fix what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have broken, especially with our illegal immigration system, which again is a slap in the face to many immigrants who stand in line, Indian immigrants especially, who stand in line, follow the rules, pay a lot of money just to work through this green card pipeline, only to see to their left and their right illegal immigrants coming into our country with no consequence, and essentially being promised by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden that they will have a pathway to citizenship in a way that many Indian immigrants who have followed the rules don't see for themselves.
Okay, and Congressman, a lot of people in India, especially, are waiting the outcome of this election. What would a Trump 2.0 presidency mean for relations with India? Do you see what would be your analysis of that? I mean, can you shed some light on that?
As we saw back through President Trump's first administration in 2016, how we and it continues to this day, how much he values his personal relationship with Prime Minister Modi. First of all, they've got a very good personal and strong relationship, but how much he values the relationship between the United States and India. The opportunity there for mutual prosperity and security is something that I know both of these countries' leaders are very committed to. I think that President Trump would make it a priority to meet with Prime Minister Modi very quickly after he is elected and sworn in as president to be able to build progress and move forward again on those areas of mutual interest, which is peace, freedom, and prosperity.
Okay, Congressman, one last question. We have the vice presidential debate tonight. A lot of expectation from both the candidates. What do you see, would play out tonight in this debate? What would be some of the talking points that would be used by JD Vance versus, Tim Walz?
Well, two things. First of all, I've been on these debate stages before when I ran for president in 2020. And and we saw it with President Trump and Kamala Harris's debate, the thing that drives me crazy, and I think a lot of viewers at home find distasteful, is that these debates turn into political theater. And they're trying to create, the moderators trying to create those viral moments or picking sides, as we saw during Kamala Harris's debate against President Trump. The moderators were clearly helping Kamala Harris, pushing not pushing her to answer questions and showing their bias against President Trump. So I would love to see neutral moderators asking serious questions of both Senator Vance and Governor Walz on the issues that the American people care most about and allowing them the opportunity to answer those questions. This is an opportunity for JD Vance to point out the truth that Kamala Harris and her campaign are trying to hide, which is the truth about her record. She has been at Joe Biden's side for these last 4 years. She's not been a passive wallflower. She herself has said that she has been the last person in the room for every major decision that Joe Biden has made over these last 4 years. Joe Biden said just a week ago that he has such confidence in Kamala Harris that he delegated every issue on domestic policy and foreign policy to Kamala Harris. And she has had the most tie-breaking votes in the U.S. Senate as vice president than any other vice president in history. So as much as she tries to run away from her record over these last 4 years, I look forward to hearing JD Vance tell the truth to the American people about her disastrous record, about her radical policies, and about how what we have seen over these last 4 years will only get exponentially worse if Kamala Harris is elected president. And also contrast that with the truth about President Trump's record of success from 2016 through 2020, from an economic standpoint, from a foreign policy standpoint, really about just the basic quality of life. The foremost question that Kamala Harris refused to answer, and the first question in her debate with President Trump, really is the question that I think most Americans are weighing as they're trying to decide, for those who are undecided still in this race. Are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? On every issue, again, on domestic policy and foreign policy, the answer to that is clearly no. The media, propaganda media, and Kamala Harris are trying to cover that up. I look forward to JD Vance reminding the people of the truth.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for speaking with us. As we get closer to the
Thank
election,
you.
we'll probably talk to you again. Thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful day today. Thank you.